Whiskey!
All right, so my understanding is that Nick talked you through yesterday what we're doing. And that hopefully, between the three of us, we will give Nick a real headache with the editing.
Yeah, loads of talking over each other, please. Loads of talking.
Anytime you bring something up that we talk about, can you say, I'm sure Nick will put a link to that in the show notes. If you can do that, amazing.
Yeah. Just like for every little...
obscure.
Everything.
I'm going to reference so many things.
Exactly. Oh, there was this obscure advertisement on Canadian TV.
Yeah, exactly that.
2001 for this whiskey. I'm sure Nick will put it in the show notes. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Amazing. Anything to give him more work.
Obscure, like Ryan Reynolds videos and Mike Myers stuff, from when he was a kid,
Martin Short stuff, a lot of Martin Short. Yeah, you got it. You know what us Canadians are all about.
Yep.
A boot.
It started already.
Amazing.
Let's get those Canadian jokes out of the way.
In this very special episode, we are sampling the Auchentoshan American Oak single malt Scotch whiskey.
And not only that, we are joined by our very good friends, our Canadian-based duo, Chelsey and Pamela of the Dram Fine Podcast. It's our first cross-Podination.
And as always, you can find some exciting whiskey-based content on all our social media platforms at Whisky and Things Podcast on Instagram and at Whisky and Things on Facebook and Twitter.
Can you believe it's February already? But anyway, it would help us out if you could rate Ueri, review Ueri, and subscribe Ueri on all your favourite podcast platforms. Thanks very much. Thought I'd do something different.
I can't think of a comeback.
You're listening to the Whisky and Things Podcast with Dave Giles and Nick Kent.
Welcome to episode 46. I'm Dave Giles.
And I'm Nick Kent. Welcome to the Whisky and Things Podcast.
Welcome. Hey, Nick, before we get cracking, I just want to thank a few people for signing up for our birthday party celebration. We mentioned it last week. We're doing our first birthday party in a couple of weeks. Well, at the beginning of March. And you've got a couple of weeks to sign up to our Patreon to be part of it. And we'll send you some whiskey. And a few people have already done that. Yeah. So thank you very much. We want to celebrate our 1 year birthday in style. The more the merrier. The more the
cake.
Merrier. Anyway, Nick, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you, sir.
Excellent.
I had chicken wings for dinner and I've eaten too many.
Excellent.
Carry on.
Anything else? Any other news for me?
I got a new chair.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, so I'm now more comfortable when I'm editing the show.
I'm really happy about that. Hopefully you'll do it quicker then.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or you'll fall asleep and it will take even longer.
It's a really comfy chair.
Both of which are possibilities.
Yeah, it's quite upright. If Nick ever goes horizontal and speaks in the third person, he does fall asleep. That's my great news. How about you, Dave? Anything exciting going on?
Mate, actually, there's a couple of things. I got a new single out called Elizabeth I.
Oh, yeah.
Quite happy with how that's going down. Lots of people liking it. It's been played on a few radio stations, Nick.
Right.
Gal Porter. Do you remember Gal Porter?
I remember Gal Porter, yeah.
She played it on a radio show, on Islington Radio. How cool is that?
Good taste, that Gal Porter.
Exactly. Also, Nick, I've been doing all this fundraising to get to Abbey Road.
Yes.
Well, I've only gone and booked the studio, haven't I?
I know. Yeah.
Booked and paid for.
Booked. Oh, dear. Paid for?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's been paid for.
They wanted the money up front. Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely, they did. £24,000 has come out of my account this week.
Am I leaving that in?
If you want. It's fine. It's just, I'm being very open about it. It's no secret, Nick. It's no secret.
You can't afford me now. Oh.
Well, that's the next year's worth of... it's going to be next January I'm in there.
So he needs to raise another 80 quid to be able to afford me.
To afford Nick Kent on the camera.
Yeah.
And then another £80 for Nick Kent on the bass. So a grand total of £165 for the bass.
Yeah. Yeah. Had to buy a new lead. Yeah. Yes.
Anyway.
Good show today.
I think we should get on because it's a busy one today and great guests. So let's get cracking.
Yes. February 8th is International Scotch Day, apparently, according to the Scotch Whisky Experience. I couldn't find it anywhere else, but it was on their website, so I'm going with it because it's a great little link into this segment.
It really is.
So we thought we'd inject some international Scotch vibes into our show by inviting Chelsey and Pamela from the Dram Fine Podcast.
Dram Fine!
From Canada. It's going to be good. It's a wicked monthly show. If you haven't checked it out, the Dram Fine Podcast.
It is great. It's absolutely amazing. Hey, they do a really funny thing.
They do lots of funny things. They do lots of things I wish I'd thought of.
Instead of first impressions, they do first impressions, as in thirsty. I love that.
It's a great little pun. We love puns on this show. But
we do love puns.
We got 3 segments now coming up with Pam and Chelsey. So we hope you enjoy. And we'll
enjoy.
Speak to you later.
Speak to you later.
You're listening to the Whisky and Things podcast.
Welcome, Pamela, and welcome, Chelsey. Thanks very much for joining us all the way over in Canada, of all places.
Hello, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hang on a moment. That's definitely not 2 Canadian accents.
No.
2 weeks in a row, we've had a real-life Scottish person.
This is truly international.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Pamela, you are from Scotland.
I am.
So please explain how you've ended up in Canada.
Oh, well, I married a Canadian, didn't I? So I ended up having to move. But obviously, I'll never lose this accent, I don't think. Quite happy about that. Yeah. Although I said garage yesterday when we were talking to Nick. I didn't know if Nick noticed that. And then afterwards I was like, who am I? What?
Garage. Whereabouts in Scotland are you from?
I'm originally from Falkirk, but I lived in Glasgow for about 10 years before I moved here.
Oh.
Very nice. Very nice.
And my family are actually from Islay, which I'm sure you're both familiar with.
No, what's that?
Yeah, what is that? Do they make,
What?
They make gin?
I'll tell you.
They make gin there or something?
A couple of gins, actually, yeah.
Oh, there you go. It's very exclusive. So whereabouts in Canada are you calling from today?
Oh, we're all the way in Edmonton, Alberta. You might know it as the Texas of the North.
We do
Maybe
now.
You don't.
Ever been?
Ever been to Alberta? Ever been to Edmonton?
I've been up there, yeah. I have been up there.
Is Calgary in Alberta?
Yeah, Calgary.
I've been to Calgary.
Calgary is about 3 hours south of Edmonton. There's a bit of a rivalry, Calgary versus Edmonton. Hockey teams, the Flames versus the Oilers. I'm sure you know all about NHL. Yeah.
Okay, so it took her all of 60 seconds into her first bit of talking before she brought up hockey. She is an absolute stereotype. I love it.
I couldn't help it.
Absolutely love it. So, yeah, but the two of you are the Dram Fine Podcast, which Nick and I have both been listening to for a while. Please explain why. I know because I listened to episode 1 and you explain in that. But to those of people who've not listened to you before, explain why you got started and what it is you do.
Well, we met and we started having conversations kind of around alcohol, as you do. And we both kind of just felt a bit underrepresented, I guess, in the podcast whiskey world. So that's why we started it. Although before we did decide on that, we were going to start a band.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was band or a whiskey podcast.
Band or a whiskey podcast. This seemed easier.
Yeah, which it isn't though. Podcasting's a lot of work. You guys,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of
I know,
work.
but I don't play any instruments, so that I was like, literally had picked up a bass like that week, and I was like, I want to join a band. And then I was like, this is really hard.
Bass is really easy. Don't worry about it. You could have easily done it and a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pam, we have time to teach you the bass. The band still isn't out of the cards.
It might happen.
Don't give up that dream yet.
Yeah.
Don't give up that dream.
No. What was your band going to be called?
Oh, I don't know. We wanted a girl band, didn't we? We wanted like a girl band with like women in their 30s.
Well, it'd be like the Fine Drams.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice. See what you did there.
Yeah.
So we just a band of the same name. Yeah, but no.
Makes branding really eady as well. You've already got it all down.
It's the same logo. Yeah.
Exactly. No, but with the podcast, like, we just, similar to yourselves in that we wanted it to be like a really lighthearted approach to Scotch, you know? So I think that's kind of why, like, our two podcasts kind of go nicely together, actually, and I'm really excited to be here with you, with you both.
Yeah, so you do specialise in tasting Scotch rather than other whiskies. Is there a reason for that?
Well, mainly, I think it comes, Pam is from Scotland, so I mean that was a big push to the Scotch direction. I personally also for many years worked at a Scotch bar. It was called the Bothy, and we had 99.9% single malts. So I just fell in love with single malts there. And of course, there's I love bourbons and I love Irish whiskeys and all from other world. But I think I just was drawn to single malts, and so then we kind of wanted to have the little niche. We wanted to stick to Scotch. And no regret.
And out of the two of you, with the dynamic with Nick and myself is that Nick does all of the work, all Allegedly. The research, knows all of the stuff, does all the editing, all the prep, and I just rock up and get all the glory.
Yeah, and usually knows more than me anyway. So yeah.
out of the two of you, who is who? Who's Nick and who's Dave?
Okay. Oh my God.
Pam is definitely Nick. Mm-hmm. In terms of in terms of the back end, she does tons of stuff. She's all social media. She makes me feel lazy, but I do the editing. And okay. I do a lot of research too, I guess. Right, Pam? Yeah.
No, you do. But I know. Similarly to Dave, she just seems to retain so much information. It just comes out of the back of her head from nowhere at times. And I'm like, how do you know that? I have to research this. Yeah. But yeah, I do like the website and all that as well, all the back end things, the secret stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, wow.
It feels like they're a little bit more equal in their prep there, Nick, than us.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, they even it out a little bit.
They do, yeah, perhaps.
But Dave, you're bringing a lot of charisma. You know what I mean? And that's possible.
Someone's got to.
Yeah.
I ain't denying it, man. I ain't denying it. Charisma.
And Nick, you have a very I did comment Dave's voice, but Nick, you also have a very very appealing voice for for radio.
It's all in the EQ. It's all in post. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's all in post. But
one funny story is a couple of weeks ago we did a non-alcoholic whiskey. And
I listened to it.
It was for dry January. We thought, and we have a few people who don't actually drink but still listen to the podcast. We thought we'd try and cover a few bases. And Nick was there, and he'd made this lovely non-alcoholic cocktail and did his tasting of what it was like and all this. And we did a really good job. And then he had some things that he then had to do after that for the podcast, and he couldn't talk.
What?
A non-alcoholic, I'd never seen him not be able to read before. It was literally a really simple sentence. No words like Auchentoshan in it or anything like that. Really simple words. And he couldn't.
Hey, Dave.
He couldn't.
Wow.
That's what I get my bourbons and my bourbons confused. That's it. Right. So it's a simple mistake. I like biscuits. Right. So, but yeah, it was quite amusing.
Yeah, I forgot
literally,
he couldn't read.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And then I asked him about it the next day, and he was like, "Were you all right yesterday?" And he was like, "Yeah, I think actually I need to drink if I'm going to be able to do this podcast. I can't."
No, I need a bit of lubricating. I need a little bit of help. Sometimes.
And I was like, Nick, it sounds like we did the non-alcoholic cocktail at the right time.
Yeah. No.
When I used to sit in the pit reading, when I used to play bass in theatre shows, if I had a couple of drinks beforehand, I could flow through the music better. I didn't think as much about it. Sometimes you overthink stuff. That's my excuse anyway.
I think that's very valid.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It works for me too. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I have a little quick something before me and Pam record. And may or may not
you
before
never told me.
Yeah, well, Pam, it's my secret that I now you know. And I may or may not have had a little something before just now. Just a little something.
Little something?
A little something. Yeah, I want to make sure I pronounce bourbon right. Anyways.
I don't know if you noticed that Chelsea's actually in a wine cellar right now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I'm in a wine cellar inside of a Scotch bar.
Oh.
Yeah, no big deal. So yeah, it's good acoustics, right? So that's where I am. It's very messy right now, so I'm not going to show you the rest of it. But yeah, there's my wine cellar.
Nice. So the original plan when Nick and I was like, let's get the girls from Canada on the podcast for International Scotch Day, was although the word is Scotch, we were thinking international, and we were thinking let's do a Canadian whiskey. Mm-hmm. And we know we're not doing that because you rightfully pointed out that's not Scotch.
Yep.
What do you drink Canadian whiskey? Because we've yet to try one ourselves. And is there a good one that we should be looking out for?
Well, I work for a Canadian. We make Canadian whiskey at the distillery I work for. I should send you guys a bottle.
Yeah.
We just released our very first whiskey, and it's like a frontier style whiskey, which means it's wheat, splash of rye in there. We aged it in brand new American oak and then finish it off in cognac and Armagnac barrels from the south of France. Ooh. It's really good. So maybe I can post you guys, send you a bottle. Yeah, it's called the Dream Run Prairie Whiskey. It's very good, but that's just a shameless plug.
Oh, no, please plug away.
No,
we're fine with that.
Bonus points for that. Bonus
that was
points.
my next question, was about your distillery, what you do there, and, and what you make.
I'm sure Nick will put some information on it in the show notes.
Yes, please do.
No worries.
But besides that, I mean, like, I drink a little bit of Canadian whiskey. The whiskey of the year was the Alberta Premium Rye, 100% rye, which,
okay,
we've tried that. That 60% plus ABV on that one too. So it's a big boy.
It's a spicy meatball.
I actually have some. We could send them some of that too if you want. I have some.
Yeah.
Send them a care package from Canada.
We're mooching all over the place. Love it.
Yeah.
Now, there's one I like. Pike Creek is the one I enjoy. Yeah, that one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't.
Don't like that one.
I haven't tried it.
I like it. It's kind of sweet. It's kind of bourbon-esque. But yeah, I like it. It's only one. But what are the actual characteristics of a Canadian whiskey usually?
Usually with Canadian whiskey, well, the thing is, Canadian whiskey is a very has a very broad definition. It's not, people may think it's just rye, but in most of the time it isn't rye. It's mostly like corn, wheat with a splash of rye in there. So the characteristics can be very diverse. But if you're thinking of just straight up rye, of course, you think of that spice as the big component of it, vanilla notes to it. But it's very, very broad range of flavors for sure. It's hard to really define because it's not very well defined. Does that make sense? No. I don't know.
Are there a lot of distilleries out there?
Yeah, there's a few, and there's more and more coming up. There was a lot of restrictive legislation province-wise in Canada that limited small batch craft distilling to be possible. So there's only these big, massive distilleries out there. But that changed in 2014, that basically deregulated the amount of how much you have to make a year. It used to be like 500,000 liters a year you'd have to make for sure. That got cut, and now we're seeing tons and tons and tons of new little small batch distilleries opening up all across Canada.
Fantastic.
And so there's more and more happening every year, and there's some really cool, interesting things happening. So I'm not sure the exact number because it's just going up.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were pretty lucky. We got to taste a whole bunch when we were on the panel there for World Whisky Awards. Do you remember that? Not long ago, Chelsey. I'm like, come on. How many did we have? It was like 12 or something. It was tons.
Oh,
what a day that was.
There was like 20.
And you can still remember it?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
a lot of notes.
First thing in the morning, drink 20 whiskeys.
Yeah, because they're based out of London.
Your palate's fresh. Yeah, there's probably that too. But your palate is fresher in the mornings. I seem to have a sniff of these sometimes in the mornings, and I smell things which I hadn't, picked up on the night before.
Is that just so you can read?
Yes, yeah, just so I can get on with my day. Really.
Oh, burn.
Yeah, I can't.
Sorry.
I don't know how to turn the kettle on until I've had a sniff of a Lagavulin or something,
Is it Pamela just dunked on Nick there?
Sorry.
I'm all in favour of this. This is amazing.
We invite you on.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
You can come again.
Yes. Back to your podcast. How do you structure your shows? Do you do it by whiskey or by theme every week? How do you do it?
I honestly think that because the first season was just a bit of fun for us, that we just kind of were like, oh, we like this story, let's feature this whiskey. And towards the end of the season, we started to have more of a structure, I would say. And then we actually never had guests until the very last episode either. So we're still kind of toying around with what kind of works for us. But in a way, it's great to have that creative freedom still.
Yeah.
You know, early days.
Yeah, we find that as well. We feel like the podcast is constantly evolving. It'd be weird if it didn't, I suppose. But yeah, definitely. I'm always telling Nick he's got to do things differently, because otherwise, what's the point?
Nick, so you do the editing, Nick, right?
I do. Yes.
So did you put in this was very upsetting to me to hear. I listened
That's
to.
right.
Oh dear! I feel like I'm going to get a barricade.
When we first started this podcast, I was like, oh, I can't wait to I have a brilliant idea for a transition between segments. And it's going to be Matt Berry's voice saying whiskey from Snuffbox.
Yeah.
And like, that's such an original idea. Cut to you doing it.
Whiskey?
Well done.
Yeah, that's my friend Sam Pope.
That wasn't Matt Berry?
No, it's not Matt Berry. That's my friend Sam doing a Matt Berry impression. No, we can't afford
brilliant.
Matt Berry. I can't afford Sam Pope, to be honest.
I was wondering how you got such good sound quality if you just got it off of, I don't know. But wow.
Because we interviewed, when we first started, I did some recording for the podcast in New Zealand, and he was out there with me doing a show, and I interviewed him and another mate, and I just got him to do like some Matt Berry stuff into the mic and just recorded it, and we've been using it ever since.
Yes. Ever since.
And now Sam Pope's massive on TikTok doing sea shanties. If anyone wants to,
yeah.
He's jumped on that bandwagon.
Mate,
is
he's
he?
huge on TikTok. Yeah.
No way.
Wow.
Wow.
I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, link it.
Please do.
Yeah, great idea.
Please do.
Also,
We'll have to get him back on now.
We have to get him back on now.
You should link that Matt Berry clip from Snuffbox.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
I should.
There you go.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Excellent. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that you tend to focus on Scotch. We're going to do a tasting of a Scotch with you in a little bit, but do you have a favourite Scotch each?
Well, mine, I think it depends on the day, the time, how I'm feeling, but I think I always come back to something Isla and usually Ardbeg, something Ardbeg, like the Ugadal. I think that's like my always kind of, I love that one. Yeah. That's what I'm going to say today, I think. Yeah. I love Pete.
Yeah, Pete's great.
Pete's a good guy.
I think mine changes regularly, but I've been stuck on the Aberlour Abuna for a while. I just love it. So delicious. Love that sherry.
Big old cherry bomb.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
A boot. Nick, you go first.
In terms of Scotch, well, yeah, I mean, Lagavulin usually my... If we're talking Isla, we're going Lagavulin. Let me look around here. Yeah, I think it is. It is Lagavulin. Yeah.
He's got a whole Isla shelf. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, I see that.
I haven't cracked the Bowmore open yet. Yeah, I haven't got the Bowmore open yet.
Oh, which Bowmore do you got?
It's just the 12.
Hey, it's a good classic.
No, I haven't tried it. It was on offer in the shop, so I thought I'll give that a little go.
Oh, that's a brilliant. Yeah, I know.
I haven't earned it yet. You feel like you need to earn opening a bottle.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what they're doing in Balvenie.
You do love that, don't you?
Yeah, I do love all that stuff. The Caribbean cask in particular, I found very delicious.
I agree.
I really love that one. So, but yeah, all their stuff, the double wood stuff is just amazing.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. We actually have a Balvenie episode coming up next one. So
nice.
Yeah.
So hang on. So that's is that the one coming out the 1st of Feb? March. Okay, yeah, there will be the next one.
We're recording that one soon. Yeah.
So the one that this is going out on the 3rd. What's in the current episode, which is out? Do you know?
Well, we decided we've recorded it. It's taken a lot of editing because it was a doozy, as Chelsey would say. We decided we would start with an episode that's just us talking. And I don't know if you listened to in season 1, we had like a sort of a ghost story episode, Toast to the Ghost.
I was going to bring that up because I was really annoyed that I didn't come up with that idea around Halloween, I think it was. A lot of your ideas, I'm like, I wish I'd thought of that. Jesus.
Well, we decided to do an urban legend type thing again. And one of the stories we told, it just went wrong.
It was supposed to be scary, but it ended up being very sexy. And
it's so sexual.
It was so okay. It's something. It's taking a lot of editing to make that something that makes any sense because we were laughing so hard. So
yeah, it was a sexy story, sexy ghost story. What more can you want? And then have a dram while you're listening to it. Perfect. So we're starting off on the right foot, hopefully. Season 2.
Sexy ghost story. Is it like that cut scene with Dan Aykroyd in Ghostbusters? You heard about that one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know about it. If the listeners know about that, they know about that.
You'll take that.
I'll link it in the description. Yeah.
Thanks.
Boom. Boom. These show notes are going to be fantastic today, Nick.
Novel.
Can't wait to read all of them. Also, that new episode, your episode of the podcast, of course, we will link within the show notes as well. Oh, Nick will link in the show
Nick
notes.
will do it.
I'll do it. Why about it?
He's got to do something, isn't he? Otherwise, what's the point in having him here?
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note, shall we move on and actually talk about whiskey?
Let's do it.
Whiskey bots, roll out.
This week's whiskey. Nicholas.
Auchentoshan American Oak Lowland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey, 40% ABV. Or Auchentoshan, if you're on that side of the Atlantic, maybe. Have you ladies had this before?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
I love a good Auchentoshan.
Yeah, I like to actually bring this one out when I have dinner parties with people that maybe are just kind of getting into whiskey. I think this is a nice one.
Bit of an introduction.
Consider it an entry level.
Yeah.
It took over from the classic, I believe, the Auchentoshan Classic. It's the new. Yeah.
This is the entry level, isn't it, in the core range?
Yes.
A little bit of background on Auchentoshan.
Here we go.
It's located about 10 miles outside Glasgow, next to the River Clyde. Yeah. The distillery was actually born, it was squeezed out of the whiskey god's mum in 1800, but was officially founded in 1823 when the Excise Act was passed.
Fantastic.
Which we talked about a few episodes ago, Dave, when we talked about Glenlivet.
I'm sure you'll put a link to that in the show notes.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes. There we go. Yeah, so it's quite an old one. Standard story for an old distillery. It's been through a million hands, but it's currently owned by Beam Suntory. So technically, this is Suntory time, everyone.
Oh, yes. We'd love that.
It's a loose connection.
You did
but any excuse for a Suntory time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys are getting all the good references today.
Bring in the Bill Murray. Love that.
Yeah.
So not much going on in terms of a history, apart from it got bombed during World War II. They'd ceased production during World War II, but they did get bombed because the River Clyde and the shipyards around there were the target of air raids, etc. It damaged the distillery and destroyed the warehouse. They lost a load of casks in there back in whenever World War II was. History, anyone? Any pop quiz?
Yeah, I remember history. So Nick, I can never spell this, let alone pronounce it correctly.
Yeah.
Where does the name come from? I reckon you know this.
Well, I want to hear Pamela pronounce it properly in the Scottish tongue.
Auchentoshan.
Auchentoshan. There we go.
Does sound better Scottish, doesn't it?
Yeah, does sound better than Scottish. It comes from a Gaelic word meaning corner of the field. I'm not going to try and pronounce it in Scotch Gaelic.
Did you know that, Pamela?
I did not. I don't. If you listen to our podcast, you know I do not speak Gaelic at all. I try sometimes. Not good. I do remember being a kid, though, growing up in Scotland, you'd get like kids' TV shows in both English and in Gaelic. So I remember Postman Pat like talking away in Gaelic, but then obviously there's some modern words that get thrown in. So he'd be like talking away, and then he'd be like, helicopter.
Amazing.
And you feel like you knew what they were talking about, but no idea.
Awesome. Funny. The distillery was also known as Glasgow's Malt Whiskey due to its proximity to Glasgow, and it was also called the Breakfast Whiskey due to its sweet and delicate nature. Apparently.
Breakfast whiskey.
That's true. We used to serve it at the bar. We used to serve it with breakfast when we had on brunches because it was the breakfast whiskey pairs nicely with a fry up. Is that what they say, Pam? A fry up?
Yeah,
fry up.
Thanks. Okay, got that.
Greasy spoon fry up. Oh, that is amazing. Yes. Unusually for a Scotch, Auchentoshan is actually triple distilled. Yeah, it's one of the only ones, if not the only one, maybe the only established one to do it.
The only one. Yeah.
It is the only one. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when it before it gets put in the cask, it's up to 81% alcohol.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's rare for a Scotch.
Yeah.
There we go. So that's what I've got on the old distillery. And today we're trying the American Oak, which is their entry level.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk more about this? I mean, I can do it if you want, but there's a word there that I'm never going to be able to say. So it's more fun you doing it.
What's the word?
I don't know how to say Pedro Jimenez. Is it Jimenez or?
Oh, Chelsey. She's great at these.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you just say it as fast as you can.
Pedro Jimenez.
Pedro Jimenez.
Pedro Jimenez. Or just say PX.
PX cast.
PX.
People should know. People know what PX means if they know. Yes.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
To explain why we're talking about the PX cask, yes, this is part of their core range. This is the entry-level one. They also do a 12-year-old and another one called the Three Wood. The Three Wood is aged in bourbon, Spanish Oloroso sherry, and then finally in the PX cask. But this one is just aged. There's no age statement. It's just aged in American bourbon barrels for the entirety. I couldn't find how old it was, but there we go.
They don't want to tell us.
No, they don't. Yeah.
I do like the bottle, Nick. It's one of those bottles which makes you feel like you've got a big bottle.
Right.
Like it feels like there's more in here than there actually is. Like it feels chunky.
Oh.
A lot of glass. There's a lot of glass there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It just feels like it's a litre rather than 700 mils. It's a good sized bottle. I don't know how they did that. Like? Not too bad.
Oh. I didn't really hear Nick's there.
Yeah, Nick, we're not getting yours. It's because you're doing it by your microphone, which isn't coming through the speaker.
Almost as if I was recording a podcast.
There it is.
It sounds amazing.
I love your appreciation for corking, like decorking the bottle sound.
It's half the fun.
Yeah.
It is part of the fun. Want that corking?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So on the eyes, briefly, it's a good orangey tone.
Or light gold, I would call that. Nice yellow, light gold.
Hay color. Hay is a nice word.
Why does it look... am I...
You're in the dark, Dave. That's the problem.
I am in the dark.
You're doing it in your moody little studio in the dark, no lights on.
Such an emo.
What do you think?
It still looks quite orange to me.
I'd say gold. Fair.
Yeah, it's a gold.
Anyway, let me be in my darkness, all right?
My Chemical Romance in there.
If only I had the hair. This smells good.
Yeah, very light, elegant. I'm getting grassiness there. Vanilla, obviously.
Yeah, cut grass and vanilla for me. Yeah, that's what I've got.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely light and bright. Vanilla. Almond almost.
Oh yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
I was about to say almond. There's definitely some of that in there.
Nice.
A little bit of marzipan.
There is a bit of marzipan.
And like extremely buttered popcorn in there.
Oh.
Nice.
Creme brulee.
Oh, look at that. She's in there with the creme brulee.
Creme brulee.
Straight with the creme brulee.
Light it up. Whoa.
Yeah, that's the reaction we're looking
Whoa.
for. Whoa.
Whoa, is that thunder out here?
There's a bit Keanu Reeves there. Whoa.
Whoa. What?
Oh, dude.
Hark.
Chelsey, Pamela, welcome to you both.
He knows us.
Of course. Whiskey God knows everyone.
Whiskey God does know everyone.
No. Exceptional nosings, ladies. And I must say, it's refreshing to be sharing the stream with whiskey podcasters who know what they're talking about for once.
Charming.
Bloody cheek.
Thanks, Whiskey guy. It's cool.
After all that schooling you've done, Nick.
Remember who pays the rent on the cloud you're sitting on, pal? And no whiskey tokens for you next month.
Whatever. You're not my dad.
Unbelievable.
I'm kind of starstruck at the Whiskey God.
Oh, please. You're too kind.
Wow.
Well, Whiskey God, please tell us your tasting notes.
With pleasure, Pamela. As you asked so nicely. Auchentoshan American Oak Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. tasting notes. On the palate, a smooth and creamy mouthfeel welcomes you. Darker notes of coconut, clove, and toffee are quite present, but juxtaposed against a darker citrus note, like that of grapefruit. A sweet oaky spice starts a slow linger with notes of granny apples and young nectarine. On the finish, that sweet oaky spice lingers away with a bit of cinnamon, and it's almost as if that grapefruit note brightly cleanses the palate for the next sip. Overall, a great ambassador to the Scottish lowlands, there is a complexity to this whiskey that likely comes from maturing this single malt in bourbon barrels, and in the case of Scotch whiskey, a very rare case of triple distillation. Usually, one of the Highland Glens is used to introduce developing Scotch enthusiasts to barley-based whiskey for the first time, before they explore other regions. However, if your Scotch palate is venturing out from the Highlands for the first time, this is a welcome stranger from the lowlands. Auchentoshan American Oak Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Ta-ta.
Wow.
So it is told.
Wow.
Wow.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank
you, Whisky God. Wow.
So,
Thank you, Whisky God.
So some interesting points there. Firstly, Pamela, it seems you are correct, according to the God, to use this as an entry level, as a way in for people trying whiskey. I picked that out. I'm hoping I heard that correctly. Also, was he talking about Grammy apples or granny apples? Because Grammys don't do apples unless they've combined to do the Grammy Apple Music Awards or something like that.
Oh.
But, was it granny apples, he said?
It's got to be granny. Yeah,
I would
apples.
assume so.
Yeah, I'd say granny.
Grammy apples.
Grammy apples. I was like, what?
Well, it could be in the gift baskets.
Finish, oak spice, cinnamon, and grapefruit. So as a refreshing end.
I was tasting along, and do you know what strikes me is this is I don't know if I would have picked this out if you'd not told me it was triples distilled, but it does remind me of Jameson's.
Okay.
It's the closest Scotch I've ever had to Jameson's.
Right.
Which is obviously Irish.
Yeah.
It's a good show, yeah.
Definitely because of that triple distillation for sure. Yeah, definitely. Although I still somewhat get a little bit of almost like a estery vibe to it too, a little bit at the end there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys get that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's just they make their cuts pretty deep. I don't know.
Their final cut is deep.
Yeah.
In that third distillation, they have a lot of the tails in it, which gives it that estery vibe.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Good stuff.
I have no idea what you're on about.
Distilling.
Well, I was always told the first cut is the deepest, but clearly I know nothing.
Watch out for the tails, mate. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm getting a slight spice on that as well. I'm getting a bit of coconut
definitely.
water. Not so much coconut. On the palate, kind of coconut water kind of thing. It's a bit different.
Yeah. I don't get the coconut, but everyone, like, in all the tasting notes I've read about it, everyone says coconut.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, for me, coconut is bounty.
Oh, yeah.
Chelsey, how would you serve this? How would you recommend serving this in a bar?
Well, I usually, for every single malt, I always would want to recommend just straight up. It is only 40% ABV, so I wouldn't even recommend water. But then again, some people, when they're first starting, maybe they need some ice. Maybe they want to add some water just to kind of dilute that down a bit, so it's not so overwhelmingly ethanol and you get some of the more nuances of the flavor. But yeah, I would recommend for this one, just straight up neat. Yeah, that's how I'd serve it.
Did you go get your Dave Broom book?
Yeah, it's not in there.
It's not in there.
Oh.
No. Because when you started mentioning coconut water, that's one of the things he often recommends mixing
Really?
mixing whiskey with. He kind of has Dave Broom, who's a fantastic whiskey writer. You may have heard of him. He has 5 that he always judges a whiskey with: soda, ginger ale, cola, coconut water, and green tea. And he gives them all ratings out of 5. And I always find that quite interesting.
What an interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't figured out why he's chosen those 5 things. It probably says in the front of the book, but I never read the front.
Did you not read the blurb, Dave?
No, I just went straight in.
Did you not judge that book by its cover as soon as you got it? I would have.
What is that for? Was that for all, like, what kind of whiskey and specific kind of whiskey, or was it?
It covers quite a lot, everything from bourbon to Japanese. And obviously it doesn't have everything in, but it's pretty good because it has from your basic blends all the way through to some decent single malts or decent Japanese stuff. So it's a good entry-level book. Like, it even has bells in it, for example. So it can teach you how to use your standard blends. But then it also has the nice, Macallan Gold in there or stuff like that. So it's a good book. I'm really enjoying it, and it's definitely made me think less snobbily. That's a word, snobbishly, about how to drink whiskey. And not be scared to go, do you know what? I'm going to add something to this and worry that it's going to ruin it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that being said, with this Scotch, because it is, how we mentioned, it's kind of like a Irish whiskey, or even kind of has a blend vibe to it too. You could use this as a base of a cocktail pretty easily, for sure, I'd say.
Yeah, and also at the price point, it's not too expensive, is it? So, again, he's put some expensive whiskies in there and suggested adding coconut water to me, and that blows my mind because it's expensive.
Yeah.
But do I want to add Coke to a whiskey that's expensive? And I know it may be an amazing drink, but do I want to do that? Whereas when it's a little bit cheaper, you can be like, oh, I'll experiment with this. I'll make a cocktail with it and see what comes out. And
Yeah, damage-wise, in the UK, this is about £32. I worked it out with the current exchange rate. That's 55 Canadian dollars. I'm not sure if that's expensive or not. How much is
that's pretty cheap.
Is that how much it usually is in Canada, or is it a bit more because of the import and all that kind of stuff?
I think it's more.
It's more. Yeah, $55 for that would be a steal of a deal. I'm not sure what it would be. I think it'd be closer to 80 for something, and that's cheap for a Scotch, a single malt. $80. That's like.
Really?
That's a steal.
Yeah. I guess it's where you are, isn't it? Yeah. For our listeners, at the moment, the Whisky Exchange are doing this on offer for £24.95, which is a very good
bargain.
Deal. It's a very good deal.
Wow.
Nick will put a link to that in our show notes.
with our link, which helps out the show if you want to go.
Absolutely.
That, everyone.
Absolutely.
There
I do like this one. I feel like there also is like a florally element to it that, I don't know if it's heather or something like that, but there's something extra in there for me.
Yeah, there is. I think Heather's a great shout on that, actually.
Yeah, there's like a herbiness at the back for me.
Herbie.
The love bug.
Great car.
Herbie.
What a great car he was.
The original Bumblebee, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. I think it's a fine lowland whiskey, especially at the price. So, and a good one to have on your shelf, as Pamela said, because when you do have people coming around, this is a good way to get people into the idea of trying more complex flavors.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like it. Good job, Nick. Good job on your research, and good tasting, everyone.
Good job, Auchentoshan.
And good job, Auchentoshan, on making this whiskey. I've enjoyed it.
Me too.
There we go.
I still think the Three Wood is my favorite Auchentoshan for sure. Have you had that one?
Not yet.
Have you guys tried that one?
No,
not yet. That one is amazing. And you mentioned how it was made with oak cast bourbon, then the PX, bourbon sherry, Oloroso sherry, then PX.
Yep.
That was a complete accident. It was a mistake.
Oh, wow.
And it just happened to work, and now I think it's probably one of their best-selling, if not the best-selling Auchentoshan. Yeah. Happy
you heard it here first. That's the one to try. So Nick will also put a link to that.
Oh, well, yeah. Go get that one.
No, Three Wood is excellent.
This is the Whiskey God, reminding you to please always drink responsibly.
We actually both want to know what your whiskey backgrounds are.
Well, we're both musicians, so really our whiskey background started with Jack Daniels, collecting all the merchandise and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of when we really kind of started looking into it more, was when we kind of got, not addicted, but we were given a lot of Jamesons by a friend we were touring with, and then we'd shoot a lot of that, and I got sick of Jamesons. But then we started the whiskey show on YouTube in 2014, called Whiskey and Things, with an E back then. But we didn't talk about whiskey, we just talked about what we were doing, and it was just an excuse to get together, and it was Wayne's World with whiskey, wasn't it, Dave?
Yeah, it wasn't really that into the whiskey. It was just
a whiskey show. All about the things back
Towards the end, we tried enough different whiskies that we had developed a little bit more of a palate, but still a long way to go. But that all stemmed from, and Nick kind of glossed over it, our friend Chris Trevero loves Jameson's, and he was over in the UK. He lives in LA. He was over in the UK for a week, and we basically spent a week drinking Jameson's and eating chicken wings. And whilst me and him were sitting there one night, he said, you should write a song about this and call it Whiskey and Wings. So I did, and I wrote a song, and it came out in 2012 called Whiskey and Wings. And then when we were talking, Nick was like, I want to do a YouTube show. We should call it Whiskey and Things. And there was the kind of play on on Whiskey and Wings.
I love that.
And that Whiskey and Wings song is our theme tune. So you hear that opening and the song at the end. That's our theme tune.
That's awesome. I love that.
That's good info.
Yeah. And I then went on to write another song on my next album called Whiskey and Daffodils. And I'm now writing my next album. I need to think of a whiskey and to put on the next album. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I do not know what I'm going to do.
Oh, yeah.
That's
If I have any ideas, I'll send you some ideas if I have any.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But yeah, so to me, whiskey and music is inherently linked. As a result of that, like as Nick said, going right back to the start, like Nick had a guitar with all the Jack Daniels branding on. He sold it to me, and then I sold it for more money.
He flipped it. Unbelievable.
Rude.
It is rude. Apparently it went up in value because he'd owned it for a while.
I just looked after it better. That was all.
Really?
I don't know.
How many guitars have you destroyed, Dave? All mine seem to be fine over there.
Far too many. Which brings us on to a little discussion, I think, about music and whiskey. Do you have a song which you like to listen to when you're drinking whiskey? Or do you have a whiskey drinking playlist? I think is probably a better question in the current climate.
It's an excellent question.
It's a great question. Well, we have a few playlists, actually, similar to your Whiskey and Wings, Whiskey and Daffodils. Ours are whiskey while drinking. No, what is it? What are it called?
Well, so we made a bunch of playlists that you can find on Spotify.
Drinking whiskey while.
Drinking whiskey while so and so and so. And then there's a scenario. So like drinking whiskey while at a table for one in a dark and smoky room or something. Or drinking whiskey while...
walking up a great big hill.
Walking up a hill. I don't know, so we have
Is there a drinking with whiskey with friends playlist? Because I've got a perfect song for that.
Oh, no, but do tell.
Yeah, it's my own song. Whiskey and Wings.
Of course.
You know what? We're going to add that.
Let's collaborate on the next podcast, on the next playlist, and we will put that on there. For sure.
I love that idea. Is Nick's going to find all these podcasts and all these playlists and put them in the show notes because I love the idea.
I'm not. Chelsea's going to send me a list. Chelsea's going to help me out on this.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm not Nick.
Or
no, absolutely not. That's not how this works.
I might do it wrong. I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know.
Oh, you're busy. Yeah, you got a proper job. Yeah, all right.
No, Nick can help you out. I got you.
They've got to edit this sexy ghost whiskey podcast.
Oh, that's true.
It's got to come out, Nick.
Whiskey ghost porn. Looking forward to that one.
Oh, jeez.
It's going to be worth it, though. Don't you worry.
The episode is out now, everyone. You can find it on Spotify and all your favorite podcast platforms.
That is
But that is going back to this. That's such a good idea for those playlists. How many different ones have you got?
I think we've got 5 so far. We're just going to keep building on them this year. Chelsey definitely has a song that she always talks about when she's drinking, though. Don't you?
Well, not so much it's not so much a song. It's just like when I think of, this is very, I think, a cliche. You listen to Tom Waits and his gravelly voice. It's very like indicative of drinking whiskey, I think, I have a lot of Tom Waits on my playlist, a lot of like deep baritone voices, like Nick Cave's another big one. I love drinking whiskey to Nick Cave, Leonard Cohen. There's a theme.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris Stapleton's got a couple of good whiskey songs.
Yeah,
Tennessee whiskey, yeah.
But he's got he's got another one called Whiskey and You. Well, that's the difference between whiskey and you. And it's like this really low thing where he compares a woman that he loved to a bottle of whiskey, and it's a really amazing song.
Oh, I have to check it out.
Yeah.
I love his voice.
It's like a heartbreak whiskey song. There's a great whiskey song by Justin Timberlake. I've tried Jack, I've tried John, tried all of them. I can't drink you away. It's amazing. It's such because he's a Tennessee boy as well.
Yeah.
It's a really, really, really great song, which Nick will put a link to in the show notes.
Just put his whole discography up there, if you don't mind.
In fairness, we actually have a Whiskey and Things podcast playlist, and I will add the songs. That's my job. I will add those songs to the playlist. So that's something that Nick only has to. You've only got to link the playlist, mate, which I think is already in the standard. Should already be in there.
Oh, thanks, mate. Save
me. No worries. You're welcome.
What about you, Nick? What do you listen to?
I love sticking on like Gary Clark Jr. If I'm drinking some bourbon or something, takes me back to Austin, gets me in that barbecue, food, Austin vibe. I love that city, but it reminds me of the film Chef, where he's playing in that, that kind of just takes me back to that place as well. It's got a couple of other songs, S.O.B. by Nathaniel Rateliff.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know that one?
It's a rowdy song.
Yeah, that's a rowdy one. Lean on Sheena is a cover by the Bouncing Souls. They got a line in that one. Here we are after dark, knocking back the maker's mark. That's one of my. That's a nice little whiskey line in there. And then there's Whiskey in the Jar as well.
Oh,
either the Thin Lizzy or the Metallica version. For me, it's the Metallica one. Which one do you guys prefer out of those two?
I think Thin Lizzy for me.
Lizzy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I knew it happened.
No offense, Metallica fans.
I like the idea of the drinking whiskey when playlist, because it's like when you're just having a chill out. I love putting on that Americana stuff, by the old guys. So, like the albums that Johnny Cash made in the last few years of his life on the American records, where he's got that really kind of old voice. And there's a guy called Guy Clark who made an album called Dublin Blues. Again, it's that really kind of like chilled out, low voice,
Southern Gothic vibes, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I love all that, and especially if you're having a bourbon, I think that goes with the territory. But there was a film recently by Dave Broom. We mentioned him earlier when I was talking about that book, the Whiskey Manual. Or the Manual, Whiskey, the Manual by Dave Broom. And he's made this film called The Amber Light, and it's inherently a film about his story and whiskey, but there's so much great Scottish music in there, and the whole social aspect of drinking whiskey and there being music playing. It's a really great film, and the soundtrack is amazing. So if you can try and track that down, I think you'd really enjoy it. Great scenery, great bit of knowledge. Dave's amazing. He's got a great story. There's some great little animation bits in there that make it really watchable as well. But the soundtrack and the live music in it, and the folk music aspect from Scotland. Again, if I'm drinking a nice Scotch by a fireplace and I'm on my own, some Scottish folk music, hell yes. All in favour of that. You can't go wrong.
I don't know if it's an age thing, but I love folk music now, especially like Scottish folk music. I don't know if it just reminds me of being younger or whatever, but I love it. And one of the playlists we have is actually made by Fiona McNeill from Celtic and Folk Fusions Radio. It's a Scottish radio station. She collaborated with us on it. Nice. And her one is Still Walking Up a Hill, and it's all folk music. It's in that. And one of the other ones is all Scottish bands as well, like some newer ones, some older ones and stuff for a Burns Supper one that we'd made as well. Right. And that's actually one of my favourite ones to listen to anytime, not just at Burns. Like, And there's a couple of little gems in there. Not a lot of folk, to be honest with you, but a lot of great Scottish bands.
Thanks so much for giving us an evening of your time, or an afternoon of your time. It's an evening for us, but it's an afternoon for you. And for sharing your thoughts on the Auchentoshan, which I can't say or spell, and just hanging out with us. It's been a lot of fun. I hope we get to do this again. because it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. I love listening to you guys, so it's been great hanging out with you.
Likewise. Yes. Look forward to the new season.
Thanks.
Yeah, same,
definitely.
Same.
Hope we get a chance to collaborate again, something else. Maybe a playlist.
That's a great idea.
Or a band. We can start a band.
Or a band.
As long as it's a sea shanty, we'll be fine. You know, people really went into it.
Yes. Sea shanties about whiskey.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
There you go.
Amazing.
Hand in hand, isn't it?
Amazing. We'll get the whiskey god to do the low part.
Yeah. Thanks, Whiskey God.
You're listening to Whiskey and Things.
So, you can watch the full uncut video of that interview with Pamela and Chelsey if you're a Whiskey and Things Patreon. That is up right now. And don't forget, if you do join Patreon, you can join in on our birthday party as well. That's patreon.com/Whiskey and Things. Or follow the link on our website where you can also get a t-shirt perhaps or a Glencairn. Whiskyandthings.com. Yeah, but I love those two. They are so much fun. This was such a great idea. I hope we get them on again. And if anyone isn't listening to their podcast, if you haven't subscribed to their podcast by now, then please do.
Yeah. We're recording this on a Monday, the 1st, and their new one just came out, so I listened to it today. God, that sexy ghost story they're talking about. It should come with a warning, that podcast, to be honest. That's a little clue. Anyway, you can find them at Dram Fine Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or you can log on to www.dramfine.com to find out more as well. But yeah, it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, a great time.
Great time.
How's your pen, Nick? You just gave that all the battering in that little segment there.
Yeah.
I think every single word was punctuated with a pen stab on the bar. He loves his pen, does Nick. Anyway, Nick, tell me what we've got coming up next week. What's happening in episode 47?
Well, we had a little brief taste of this guy a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
When we put on we had a bit in the show, actually, didn't we? We had Paul Martin, the mixologist, on. We had a little clip of him on our Instagram making a non-alcoholic cocktail for us. But as we said back in that episode, you had to wait a little bit before you actually heard the full interview. Well, next week, you will be able to hear the full interview.
Absolutely.
Yes, Paul Martin, mixologist. He also runs dreamwhiskies.com and bartendertraining.co.uk. And he'll be telling us all about his mixology career and all about Dream Whiskies, which is a site which gives you, yes, you listener, the chance to win some lovely whiskies, including some really nice, really tasty, kind of expensive ones you wouldn't normally maybe fork out on. So yeah, we'll be talking to Paul Martin next week.
Fantastic. It's a good episode. He's great fun. Great guy. You're going to love him.
Yeah.
You're going to love him. But what are we drinking, Nick?
Well, I went through a few. Here was my thought process. I thought, you know what? We've been doing Scotch for a while now, because our last episode where we didn't do a Scotch was 35, where we did the Gariana.
Wow.
And
all the Scotch.
I thought, well, let's do a Welsh whiskey. You know, I've got one here called Cardew, which I thought was Welsh. Turns out that's a Scotch as well. So I'm going to have to do lots of research on that one. So we're not doing that because we don't want to do a Scotch again. So we're going to do the classic. As we do have a mixologist on next week, we thought, why not go with the classic? Let's do JD.
Yep, and we mentioned it with Chelsey and Pamela as well. This is something we've mentioned a lot. It's played a big part in our whiskey story. So it's shocking that it's been 47 episodes and before we've done it. But, you know, we're going to do it. We're going to try that JD, original number 7.
Yep. Sounds like a perfume, doesn't it?
It really does.
JD, number 7.
I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to it.
By Calvin Klein.
But maybe it will surprise me. Maybe it's going to surprise me.
Well, everyone knows I like it in moderation. But yeah, we're going to do that. And we might be mixing it with stuff.
Maybe we'll have some fun doing some cocktails. Yeah.
Might have a bit of Coca-Cola out or whatever. Is it? Can you have it with anything else apart from Coca-Cola?
I think we should try, Nick.
Is Pepsi ever okay?
No.
No, Pepsi's never okay.
No, you should walk out a bar when they say that. Yeah. In my opinion.
At the moment, to be honest, I wouldn't be too fussed. But there we go. So yes, episode 47 out next Wednesday.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
I just punched the bar.
See, that's because he didn't have his pen. He decided, I can't use the pen because Dave told me off for using the pen. I'll punch it instead. Now he's hurt himself.
Because the pen is my safety net.
The pen is more mighty than the sword, Nicholas.
Yes. Right, let's wrap this up. It's been a long episode.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Please don't forget to press share. And we hopefully see you next week. But cheers.
Thanks for coming.
Whiskey and Things has been brought to you by And Things Productions.